They did not know it yet, but a tide was forming across the ocean, a tide made not of water, but of pistons, gears, steel, mines, and a determination that would soon reshape the fate of continents. Long before armies clashed on beaches, long before tanks rolled through ruined cities, long before the world understood what total war truly meant, something was waiting in a country thousands of miles away. This was the moment Germany realized, slowly at first and then all at once, that America was built different. In the early days of the conflict, German strategists believed they had calibrated every variable. Their doctrine emphasized precision, rapid victory, and the use of highly specialized equipment. The German army, trained to operate with almost mathematical discipline, assumed war would be won by decisive surgical blows. And in Europe, for a time, that belief seemed unshakable. Poland collapsed in weeks. France, once seen as the anchor of Allied power, fell with stunning speed. The Blitzkrieg machine was nothing short of terrifying. German officers looked at maps and saw a world they believed they could mold. Across the Atlantic, however, something else was happening, quietly, steadily, in factories and workshops scattered across the American continent. At first glance, the United States seemed ill-prepared for the storm that was brewing. Its military was small, underfunded, and lacking the modern weaponry the European powers had developed. Many Americans were still recovering from the Great Depression. To German observers, America appeared distant, divided, and slowed to action. They saw a giant that preferred to sleep. But beneath that calm surface, years were turning. Ideas were forming. Energy was building. And when the moment finally came, the transformation would be unlike anything Germany had anticipated. It began with the sound of machines warming up before dawn. Automobile factories that once produced cars began to retool for purposes no one could have imagined a decade earlier. Assembly lines designed to roll out sedans now churned out armored vehicles. The same hands that tightened bolts on engines for family cars were now riveting steel plates for aircraft. In cities like Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Chicago, the air itself seemed to vibrate with a new rhythm, a rhythm that spoke not of consumer goods, but of an industrial beast, awakening to a singular task. Germany believed a war could be won with speed. America believed a war could be won with endurance. This difference, this fundamental contrast, would soon change everything. As months passed, a challenge emerged in German military planning rooms, one they struggled to fully interpret. Intelligence reports revealed that American industry was not only expanding, it was accelerating at a pace that defied conventional logic. Production estimates had to be adjusted upward again and again. German analysts trained to respect precision manufacturing could not fathom the idea of quantity overwhelming quality. They believed every tank should be flawless, every aircraft a masterpiece of engineering. America believes something else entirely. A weapon that exists is better than a weapon still on the drawing board. Take the B-24 Liberator as an example. The aircraft was not elegant. It was not beloved by pilots. It had quirks, flaws, and demanding maintenance routines. But America did not build one B-24 or even 100. America built thousands. Ford's Willow Run plant created an assembly line for airplane production that stunned the world. A bomber rolled off the line every hour, an accomplishment. So massive that German intelligence at first assumed the reports were exaggerated. But they were not. What Germany viewed as a problem, America viewed as a challenge to be solved with scale. Where German factories relied on small teams of expert machinists, American factories embraced interchangeable parts, simplified engineering, and huge workforces trained to do one action perfectly over and over again. Factories adopted an almost biological rhythm, shifts moving in and out, sparks flying from welders' torches long into the night, freight trains pulling out with loads of newly minted weapons destined for ports on both coasts. Yet this was only half of the story. The other half lay with the American people themselves, who were shaping an identity Germany had long underestimated. Men and women from farms, towns and cities, teachers, office workers, mechanics, students poured into industrial centers with a sense of duty that seemed to grow stronger with every passing day. Women took on roles that had once been unimaginable. Grandmothers learned how to operate lathes. Young mothers worked night shifts building artillery shells. Teenagers inspected aircraft engines for imperfections that could cost lives. These were not soldiers in uniform, but they were soldiers nonetheless, soldiers of production, soldiers of endurance. The German leadership understood the concept of total war, but they did not understand what it meant for a nation of America's size and spirit to commit to it fully. For Germany, total war was a forced mobilization born of necessity. For America, total war became a voluntary surge of national unity and industrial brilliance. But perhaps the biggest surprise, the turning point in Germany's understanding, came from something they initially saw as a weakness: America's decentralized approach to problem solving. In Germany, authority flowed downward. Orders were meant to be followed, plans executed with precision. In America, authority moved outward. A factory worker who saw a faster way to assemble a part could speak up and spark an entire redesign. A junior officer who invented a new tactic could see it adopted across units. College students, engineers, and hobbyists contributed ideas that sometimes made it into battlefield technology. It was chaotic, messy, unpredictable, and incredibly effective. German planners had never faced an enemy whose strength came not from strict obedience, but from creativity unleashed on an industrial scale. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, ordinary Americans were participating in scrap drives, conserving fuel, planting victory gardens, volunteering at training centers, and writing letters to soldiers they had never met. The culture itself became a weapon: optimistic, confident, restless, improvisational. By 1942, Germany began to see glimpses of what was forming, a nation capable of reinventing itself faster than they could respond. Each time Germany escalated the intensity of the war, the United States escalated its production in response. Each time German forces captured territory, American shipyards and factories increased output. And each time Allied troops needed more supplies, more medical equipment, more transport vehicles, America provided, not through heroic miracles, but through relentless efficiency. Then came Lend-Lease, the program that baffled Germany more than any single military maneuver. The idea that America would supply allies with weapons, food, aircraft, trucks, and raw materials, often free of charge, seemed almost absurd. German officers questioned how a nation could possibly arm the world and still prepare for its own battles. But America could, because America was built different. And as 1942 turned into 1943, the full magnitude of this difference began to reveal itself. The German war machine, once seen as unstoppable, started to face an opponent whose strength multiplied with every passing month. American factories did not slow down. They accelerated. Training centers expanded. New ships were launched every few days. New aircraft filled the skies. New armored divisions crossed the oceans. Germany had awakened something vast, something resilient, something it neither predicted nor fully understood. And that was only the beginning. Germany did not understand the full scale of the transformation until the numbers began to arrive, cold, undeniable figures that painted a picture more threatening than any army marching across a field. At first, German intelligence officers dismissed the reports as exaggerations, propaganda or hopeful errors made by Allied analysts. But week by week, the figures sharpened. Aircraft production, tank output, shipbuilding tonnage, fuel reserves, industrial manpower, every calculation pointed to a truth that was deeply unsettling. America had not simply joined the war. It had reorganized itself to win it. Across the Ruhr Valley, German industrialists and military planners fought over intercepted reports and captured documents, astonished at what they saw. By 1943, the United States was producing more planes in a single year than Germany had built in the entire war so far. American factories operated with a confidence and speed that seemed almost reckless to German eyes. They built machines not just for precision, but for replacement, for reliability, for numbers so overwhelming that even catastrophic losses could be shrugged off and replenished within days. The German philosophy of war had been built on mastery. Master mechanics, master tacticians, master strategists. Their tanks were engineered with the precision of clockwork. Their aircraft were admired even by their enemies for design and performance. Their infantry tactics were studied for decades after the war. Germany believed brilliance was the foundation of victory. America believed something else entirely. Victory belonged to whoever could produce, adapt, repair, and replace faster than the enemy could destroy. This difference, invisible at first, became clearer with every month. But nowhere did the contrast reveal itself more dramatically than in the Atlantic Ocean. Germany believed it had the key to starving the Allies into submission: the U-boat. Sleek, deadly, and expertly engineered, these submarines prowled the ocean with ruthless efficiency. Early in the war, they terrorized merchant convoys and threatened to sever Britain from its lifeline of supplies. German commanders were confident that the Atlantic would become an impenetrable killing ground. What they did not expect was how America would respond, not with a single solution, but with many. First came the industrial response. German U-boats could sink 5 ships in a week. America responded by launching 20. Welding crews worked day and night in shipyards from Maine to California. New techniques allowed whole sections to be pre-built. and then joined together like blocks. Liberty ships, simple, rugged, and deliberately unsophisticated, rolled into the water faster than German torpedoes could sink them. Second came the technological response. Radar, sonar, improved depth charges, long-range patrol planes, and escort carriers created a web of surveillance across the ocean. For every adaptation the U-boats introduced, American scientists countered with something more flexible, more scalable, or more practical. The Germans were fighting with elegance. The Americans were fighting with systems. Third came the manpower response. America trained wave after wave of sailors, pilots, engineers, cryptographers, and shipbuilders. The German Navy struggled to replenish its losses. The American Navy expanded even faster than the battlefield demanded. And so Germany watched, horrified as the unstoppable force they believed the U-boat fleet represented slowly turned into a statistical impossibility. America was not just replacing the lost ships, it was building more than Germany could ever hope to sink. This was the kind of war Germany had never planned for, a war of industrial flooding, a war where the enemy overwhelmed problems not through perfection, but through unstoppable volume. But the Atlantic was only the beginning. Across North Africa, the first major clashes between German and American forces produced mixed results. At Kasserine Pass, American troops suffered a painful defeat. German officers celebrated. They believed they had proven the United States lacked battlefield discipline, that American soldiers were inexperienced and poorly commanded. For a brief moment, Germany felt its early assumptions were justified. Then something happened, something uniquely American. The defeat triggered not demoralization, but rapid adaptation. Officers were replaced. New training was introduced. Logistical systems were reorganized. Units learned quickly, aggressively, almost hungrily. American soldiers returned to the front lines, not demoralized, but hardened. German commanders had never encountered an enemy that improved this quickly. By the time the campaigns in North Africa ended, America had shown that its first stumble was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of transformation. The same culture that had fueled its industrial power now fueled its battlefield learning curve. Germany realized it was fighting a nation that treated mistakes not as failures, but as data. And then came Sicily. American paratroopers, infantry divisions, armored units, and naval support worked together in ways that surprised even their own commanders. The invasion demonstrated a level of coordination Germany had assumed would require years of experience. Instead, the Americans adapted in months. But the true shock came with Operation Overlord, D-Day. When Germany saw the scale of the invasion, it understood the truth it had long feared. America's industrial power was not a distant threat. It was a present force, rolling across the beaches of Normandy in the form of tanks, trucks, aircraft, and men who had been trained, supplied, and transported across an ocean. German commanders stared at the reports. One asked quietly, "How many more do they have?" The answer was what broke morale, more than anyone could count. But even the invasion itself was only part of the revelation. The real surprise lay in American logistics. If Germany was the master of tactical brilliance, America was the master of sustaining brilliance. The Red Ball Express, a massive, continuous convoy system, delivered fuel, ammunition, and supplies at a pace Germany believed impossible. Every day, trucks ran from beaches to front lines, forming an industrial artery that kept the Allied advance alive. Germany had no equivalent. Their supply lines were strained, overextended, vulnerable. They could produce excellent tanks, but not enough fuel. They could produce powerful aircraft, but not enough pilots. They could produce weapons, but not the transportation network needed to support them. America understood war as a moving ecosystem. Germany understood war as a sequence of battles. This philosophical difference changed everything. Meanwhile, back in the United States, the home front had become something Germany could hardly comprehend. Movie theaters taught viewers how to conserve materials. Children collected scrap metal. Factories offered reward programs for improved efficiency. Entire neighborhoods organized around supporting troops. Sporting events became rallying points for national unity. For Germany, war was a burden on society. For America, society had become an engine for war. Then came the scientific front. German science was legendary, but fragmented. American science became unified, coordinated, and federally funded on a scale the world had never seen. University laboratories worked up, hand in hand with military, planners, and private companies. New materials, new fuels, new radar systems, new medicines, all emerged from a scientific community mobilized like an army. German officers were stunned to learn that the United States had used civilian universities as part of its war machine. It was a concept that felt alien to a state that favored military secrecy above all. And slowly, Germany came to a chilling realization. America was not fighting one war. It was fighting five: industrial, military, logistical, psychological, and scientific, simultaneously. And it was winning all of them. By late 1944, German morale began to fracture. Officers knew the truth even when propaganda tried to hide it. The American presence in Europe was not the result of luck or circumstance. It was the result of a national infrastructure built on adaptability, abundance, and a culture of relentless problem-solving. And Germany had no answer for it. The turning points were everywhere. Paris liberated, supply lines unbroken, reinforcements constant, equipment replaced as fast as it was lost. American soldiers arrived with fresh boots, new gear, and enough supplies to share with Allied units. German soldiers marched until their feet bled and fought in uniforms that were patched and repatched beyond repair. Then came the final shock, one that Germany did not fully understand until it was too late. America could fight a war of attrition without collapsing. Germany could not. As 1945 approached, the reality became inescapable. The American war machine was not a temporary phenomenon. It was the natural expression of a country built on scale, invention, and an economic system that rewarded speed and volume. Germany was realizing, painfully, slowly, inevitably, that the opponent they had awakened was not simply a nation with strong factories. It was a nation built for reinvention, built for momentum, built for the long fight, built different. This revelation did not come on a battlefield, nor in a single moment of collapse. It unfolded slowly across thousands of miles of front lines, inside crumbling command bunkers, in factories running on fumes, in villages where supplies had long stopped arriving, and in the minds of German officers, who no longer needed intelligence reports to understand what was happening. By 1945, Germany had learned beyond any doubt that America was not simply a powerful nation. It was a system, an idea, a relentless engine capable of reshaping the entire war by force of scale and ingenuity. As Allied armies pushed deeper into Europe, the contrasting conditions presented itself in every direction. German soldiers fought with determination, but each day revealed shortages that could not be hidden. Fuel rationed to the last gallon, ammunition counted bullet by bullet, tanks abandoned not because they were destroyed, but because they could not be repaired. Meanwhile, American units received supplies in quantities that felt almost unreal. New boots, fresh rations, crates of ammunition, spare parts, tools, replacement engines, everything seemed to flow toward them with the inevitability of a river. To the Germans holding the front lines, it felt as if America could conjure supplies out of thin air. But the truth was more complex and far more formidable. Behind every American soldier were layers of logistics, so dense and coordinated that the entire war effort resembled a vast machine, constantly humming, constantly adapting, constantly expanding. Railroads carried material to ports. Ships carried it across oceans. Trains carried it inland. Trucks delivered it to depots. Mechanics repaired it. Factories built more before anyone had time to ask. The machine did not sleep, did not pause, and did not acknowledge setbacks. And the deeper American forces moved into Europe, the louder and more overwhelming that machine became. Even German civilians began to notice the imbalance. Rumors spread about American rations that seemed luxurious by wartime. Standards, meals with meat, canned goods, chocolate, coffee. German families, surviving on substitutes and scraps, could not imagine such abundance. The shock deepened when American troops handed out food to children in towns they liberated. It was a gesture of kindness, but it also revealed a truth Germany had tried to deny. The United States was fighting with only a fraction of its total capacity. While Europe starved, America was still producing. While German factories struggled to repair bomb damage, American factories were increasing output. While German forces cannibalized vehicles for parts, America was stockpiling. The magnitude of this disparity drove home a grim realization. Inside the German high command, victory had become mathematically impossible. Even the Luftwaffe, once the symbol of German strength, felt the difference. Experienced pilots dwindled, replaced by teenagers with only a few hours of flight time. Aircraft production slowed under relentless bombing. Fuel reserves dried up. Meanwhile, American pilots arrived with training that emphasized safety, teamwork, and adaptability. American aircraft rolled out of factories faster than the Luftwaffe could shoot them down. The sky itself seemed to tilt in America's favor. And then came the tanks. Germany's armored forces, once invincible, had reached their breaking point. The vaunted Tiger and Panther tanks were powerful but expensive, slow to build and challenging to repair. Their engines overheated, their transmissions broke, and spare parts were scarce. Every tank lost felt irreplaceable. America took the opposite approach. The M4 Sherman was not perfect. It wasn't the strongest or most heavily armored, but it was reliable, easy to repair, and mass-produced in staggering numbers. When a Sherman was knocked out, two more took its place. When a part failed, mechanics swapped it out in minutes. When tanks needed fuel, convoys delivered it. When roads were clogged, engineers built new ones. The German high command realized, too late, that they were fighting a different kind of enemy, an enemy that did not depend on elite machines, but on systems that allowed average machines to outperform elite ones by sheer presence and persistence. German officers who captured American depots or transport hubs were stunned by what they found. Mountains of crates stacked like miniature cities, rows of vehicles waiting for deployment, warehouses full of spare engines, tires, and weapons. It was like discovering a second army hiding behind the first, an army of endless material. The deeper truth became undeniable. America had not only prepared for war, it had prepared to outlast war. But beyond the physical supplies, something else astonished the Germans, something far more difficult to quantify. The American soldier himself seemed different. When German interrogators questioned captured Americans, they encountered a curious mix of discipline and independence. American troops were trained to follow orders, but they were also trained to improvise, to adapt, to solve problems on the spot without waiting for instructions. This blend of structure and creativity baffled German officers who had been raised in a rigid hierarchy. And then there was morale. Even after long campaigns, American troops displayed a level of optimism that seemed almost unrealistic. They wrote letters home, joked in muddy trenches, shared rations with civilians, and built makeshift comforts wherever they went. They fought hard but carried an unshakable belief that they would eventually return home. That confidence came not from arrogance, but from the reality they saw around them: steady reinforcements, reliable supplies, and a homeland that was still thriving. For the German soldier, the war was a tightening vice. For the American soldier, it was a mission with an end in sight. Meanwhile, on the home front, Germany was collapsing under the weight of its own ambitions. Factories were bombed. Railroads were ruined. The once efficient war machine struggled under shortages of coal, oil, rubber, and skilled workers. Every attempt to ramp up production fell short. Every new plan arrived too late. In the United States, the opposite was true. The longer the war lasted, the stronger its production became. Workforces expanded. Job training programs created skilled laborers by the millions. New factories opened in towns that had never seen industry before. The entire nation became an engine humming toward a single objective. Even the Manhattan Project, the most secretive scientific endeavor of the war, reflected the American difference. While Germany struggled to allocate resources to research, America mobilized thousands of scientists, engineers, and workers across multiple states. Entire cities were built from scratch to support the project. The scale was so immense that Germany did not even know such an effort existed until it was too late. Though the atomic bomb would ultimately play its most decisive role in the Pacific, the existence of such a program demonstrated something of Germany now understood clearly. America's ability to mobilize knowledge was as impressive as its ability to mobilize industry. And yet, perhaps the most stunning moment of all came after the fighting ended. Germany expected the American system to collapse under the weight of demobilization based on employment, economic strain, and social upheaval. Instead, America transitioned from wartime production to peacetime, prosperity with remarkable speed. Factories retooled for consumer goods. Returning soldiers went to college under the GI Bill. Highways expanded. Suburbs grew. The same energy that had fueled the war machine now fueled an economic boom. This was the moment Germany fully understood the depth of America's difference. The United States had not merely mobilized for war. It had mobilized its identity, its industries, its institutions, its people, and its imagination. And when the war ended, it simply redirected that momentum. What Germany learned was not just that America had overwhelming resources. Many nations have resources. America knew how to wield them. What Germany learned was not just that America could produce at scale. Many nations can produce. America could reinvent production itself. What Germany learned was not just that America's soldiers were brave or numerous. Many armies are brave. America's soldiers were backed by systems that ensured their bravery could be sustained. What Germany learned in the end was that America fought differently because America was different. It was different in the way it mixed structure with freedom, different in the way it rewarded innovation from the bottom up, different in the way it blended optimism with discipline, different in the way it turned factories, universities, towns, families, and entire communities into engines of national purpose. And Germany, for all its tactical brilliance and engineering excellence, faced something no strategy could overcome: a nation that did not break, did not slow, and did not stop. The lesson came in waves, in the factories of Detroit, in the supply lines of Normandy, in the convoys of the Red Ball Express, in the skies over Europe, in the laboratories of American universities, in the hearts of millions of workers who believed they were part of something larger than themselves. The day Germany learned America was built different was not marked by a single explosion or a single surrender. It was marked by a slow, undeniable realization. They had awakened a force forged from diversity, ambition, and unshakable confidence, a force capable not only of fighting a global war, but of reshaping the world that followed. And long after the guns fell silent, that lesson remained. America was not simply powerful. America was built different. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more incredible World War II stories. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps support the channel.